Beth Wooser. I am the ESEA Federal Programs Administrator for the state of Nebraska. And just a couple of housekeeping things. We're going to ask everyone stay muted until there are a couple different times during the presentation that we're going to have a spot for questions. You also can type questions in the chat and the team will try to be answering those as we go. Also, if you could sign in the chat so we have a record of who's here, that will really help us also. So just your name and what district you're from. That would be amazing. So I'm going to have our team introduce themselves and say which ESU areas they're working with. So you know who it is that might be contacting you about monitoring. And I will call them all out. And then I'm going to have Anne go last because she is going to be leading us through this presentation. So Dottie, I'm going to have you go first.
Good morning, everybody. Dottie Hoisman. I work with ESU 3 and Omaha Public Schools. That's who I do the monitoring for. And I'm also going to be supporting some of our new staff members. So I will see some of you in various ESUs this year.
All right, thank you. I'm going to have our two newer people now. Tateman, can you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Beth. Yes, I'm Tateman. I'm started with the team in July of this year. I am working with ESUs 2, 9, 11, and 15.
Okay, Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle Resnick, and I'm also new to the federal programs department. Dottie will be supporting me this year. I work with ESU 1, 8, and 5, and I can't wait to come out or talk to your school and see all the amazing things that you're doing.
Thanks. Okay, Julie, I'm going to have you go next.
Yeah, I'm still relatively new too. I've been here just a little over a year, and I get to support ESU 7 and 13, and we're working on our schedule to get out for monitoring visits this year.
All right, Ann Hubble's already she's already started. So Ann, I'm going to have you go next.
Oh, okay. Yep, I'm Ann Hubble and I support Title III, and then I also work with ESUs 4 and 6 and 17. Thank you.
All right, and then Rhonda, can you introduce yourself?
Good morning, I'm Rhonda Reet, Federal Programs Office Associate.
All right, and then Janice.
I'm Janice Palin. I am somewhat new to the federal programs team. I just transferred over from grants management in August. So not sure what my role is going to be with monitoring, but happy to help wherever needed.
All right, and then Benjamin isn't on, but he does our migrant, and he'll be contacting those that have migrant programs at some point. Ann Carmody, I'm going to have you introduce yourself and then take over on the presentation.
Awesome. Thanks, Beth. I'm Ann Carmody here with the team. I work with ESU 10 and 16, and I'll just kind of be leading you through today on the whole monitoring process. I know we have a lot of people on, which is great, and we will have spots for questions. You can put them in the chat. I think Beth and Dottie will be manning that, and then we will have time at the end. We'll have some breakout rooms if you want to directly talk to one of us, or you have any more in-depth specific questions. So, okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Here's kind of the agenda of what we're going to go through. We're going to put a little bit more emphasis and focus on just the Title I section because everyone has that in their monitoring, and then we will briefly go over some of the other areas with the monitoring process if you are a larger district or you do take on more of the title funding rather than just Title I. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is, what is monitoring and why are we on the list? You get to be on the list this year. It is a federal requirement, so we do have to do monitoring per the law for districts at least once every 5 years. We have switched over from a 3-year process to a 5-year process, realizing that we were going out a little bit more than we needed to. So now with learning and getting through it. We are doing a 5-year process, so we will only be out there once every 5 years. We are purposeful with this, and we have been planning on doing it in year 2, the year after your external visit, to come out, so you have time to make up your new goals and objectives, to kind of implement them and see how they're going. When we come out, we are not a hoping to catch you kind of thing. We are there to ensure that all the little policies are being followed and that everything is in place that you need to have in place to make sure that you don't get in trouble with auditors. So try not to stress too hard over when we come out. We very rarely give corrective actions. And it's more of a, how can we help support you? How can we help you implement Title I more efficiently? Or how, we also just love to learn to come out, or love to come out and learn what it is you guys are doing. What's your title program like? What's your school like? What do you guys do with interventions? And personally, I love coming out to the schools and learning about all that. Okay, so that is why we do it. I guess I could have said short version is we have to, but once every 5 years. And so hopefully now that we have the schedule in place, you'll see us once and then not again for 5 years. Okay. If you want to know the schedule, if you want to know where you are on the monitoring schedule, if this year is not your turn, if you go, this is our federal, or this is just the NDE website. If over on the side you go over to programs, services, and initiatives, you will find our page on there. We are the federal programs. This is our main page, and then you do have to scroll way down on our page to get to this section, but there is one with the monitoring schedule and along with all the forms. And so if you want to know where you are on that schedule, that ESSA 5-year monitoring schedule, we have it. It's nice and color coded to see by ESU, excuse me, and by person. So you will see each one of your reviewers, which ESUs they have, and then what color you are, so where you are in the monitoring process. So if you are curious and you want to find that, that is how you find it. Okay, so right now we are all in the process of getting everyone scheduled. Okay, so one of us will be reaching out to you asking for probably a variety of times or dates, because when we travel to do that, we try to coordinate to do 2 a day. So we try to do, we'll do your district and then someone nearby. And so trying to rearrange all that and get all that scheduled, depending on how big your ESU is, we try to do that. We try to do 2 a day. And so we right now probably have you penciled in. If not, we will get you scheduled, and then you will get an official monitoring letter from one of us stating specifically the date, the time, if it's in person or if it's online, and along with what programs we are going to review. Okay, so it'll get emailed, but it's on official NDE letterhead with all of the information about your visit. So we plan on 1 to 3 hours, and that's really kind of dependent on how many programs you have. If you are just a Title I district, plan on about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. If you're a large district and you take Title I, II, III, IV, maybe you have Title I-D, McKinney-Vento, plan on 3 hours, just because it takes more time to get through everything. When we are reaching out to schedule these times with you, please make sure it works for your entire team. So usually when we reach out, it is to the superintendent, or if you have a federal teams person in your district, but please make sure that that would also work with, your Title I teacher. If you have just one building, one teacher, because we do love to talk to them and see, and just hear from them how they're doing. It could include your elementary principal, a middle school principal, a curriculum director, maybe your bookkeeper. So when we are reaching out with those times, check with your whole team to see, or make have everyone block that time out on their calendar, because we would love to have everyone be there when we are doing this visit. Before we even come out, we do request that you get us the documents at least 2 weeks prior to the meeting. And that is because we need to go through and review them and make our own comments. getting these documents to us prior to the meeting really ensures your meeting will go quicker. So if I have things beforehand, I can go through your policies. I can make my comments and say, okay, yep, you guys have this policy. Let's not really talk about it. But if you don't get that stuff to us beforehand, and then we're trying to look it up, and then we have to read through the policy while we're there, we have to talk through it. It just takes longer. So if you are someone who enjoys quicker, more efficient meetings, please make sure you get those documents to us at least 2 weeks ahead of time. You do need to make comments in each section of the checklist that applies to your program, and I'm going to show you some examples for that. We will send you the checklist either in a PDF form, a Word doc, or maybe a Google Doc if you are a Google user. And then you will need to put in your own comments. You can link things in there. So we used to, you scan copies, you'd send those things to us. We're all about the digital. So if you want to put links to things, if they're on your website, if they're in Google folders, that is a-okay. Just make sure that we have permission, especially in those Google folders. Or if you want to make your own Google folder specifically for monitoring and just drag files into there, that is a-okay with us. Labeling things really goes a long way too. Instead of, scan number, blah, 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 blah. If you put directly on there, homeless policy, then we know what we're looking for. It just makes things go a lot quicker. Before we get into the monitoring guide checklist, I do want to reiterate that it is not your Title I teacher's responsibility to complete this checklist. There are parts of it that really pertain to them, but overall, we're looking for a lot of policies and comments. And so it would be more of an administrative job, or maybe the MTSS team, or if you have a whole title team for your district. But please do not throw that on the desk of your Title I teacher and say, please complete this, because it can be daunting, but it should not be their responsibility to fill out. When we send you the checklist, first of all, don't be scared. It looks worse than it is. Is it like 46 pages, 42 pages? Okay, but only some of it pertains to you. All right, unless you're the Omaha, Lincolns, Grand Islands of the world, you do not need to fill out the whole thing. You usually need to fill out about 8, maybe 12 pages. Okay, so don't get scared when you see it. You only have to fill out the parts that pertain to your district. Here is a sample. This is what the checklist looks like. The first page has our logo on it. The second page you just fill out. You fill out your own information, and then you click the boxes that pertain to you. There's one section, the one that's highlighted here in yellow, that it pertains to everyone, and that's the first 7 pages of the checklist. So everyone has to fill out the first part, and then if you are Title I only, you only need to fill out one more part. So Section 1 applies to all districts. It's a policy heavy section of the checklist. And then Section 2, we have 2A if you're a targeted building, and then we have 2B if you're a school-wide. Okay, and if you can kind of see here on this checklist, half of this is preschool and non-publics. So if you don't have preschool, or if you don't fund preschool with Title I should say that, and you don't have any non-publics, you're only filling out like 12 pages. Okay, so don't be intimidated. It's not as bad as it seems. But again, we will walk you through this, and we are always here to help you fill this out if you have questions. Okay, so here is just an example of the monitoring guide checklist. This is just page 1. It pertains to everyone. The district notes, they go in this column right here. And it says district ESU response. So this red one, this is where you guys would put in your notes. Any section that pertains to you, we need some sort of a comment on. All right, you will leave this last column blank, because that is when we come out to do your visit. As you're talking to us, as we're looking over your documents, we make our own comments, saying, yes, it's there. We'll maybe add some more detail. But the district notes, that's the column we need you guys to fill out. Sections that are in dark gray and bolded, those are required documents that we must have. The sections that are just in white, Those are things we have to ensure that you have and are doing, but it's not required documentation that we have to file. Okay, so just because it's not required though doesn't mean we get to ignore it, but you have to provide documentation. So anything that's in that dark gray, have a link to, or you could put notes in there like submitted form 2, which is our CIP plan, something like that. This would be an example of how the checklist should look for the first 3 sections. So again, this is a section that pertains to everyone. This one talks about, the language over here, it's straight from the law, so it can be a little, I don't know, not fun to read, but these checklists right here will really tell you what we need. We need your continuous improvement plan. Over here, we have the link to it. We need your action plan. Here's the link, your goals and objectives, and your link to this summary of data analysis. Then a little bit of comment of saying, where you are in that CIP plan. So this would be an example of how a really well filled out checklist would look. Okay, for the other 2 sections that we don't necessarily need documentation, like this one just says, have you done your ESSA grant? Well, yeah, everyone does that. Everyone has it submitted. So we would just say like, yep, we submitted our grant. It was approved. Here's a policy. We have that policy. You can link the policy if you'd like, but we have to have a comment in each section, as well as these little X's that say, yes, this pertains to us. Okay, if you forget the X's, it's not the biggest deal, but in this section, it pertains to everyone, so we would need them. The other thing that we need from everybody is time and efforts. Okay, so on this page, you can find them. This is our federal team's website under forms for a semi-annual time and effort. This is an updated one. And so if you and your bookkeeper, if you guys are used to using ones and you've had them for 100 years, maybe take a look at our new one. This is all the information that we have to have on there. And we just updated this over the summer. And so this is one of the big things too, when you do get fiscally monitored, that they really look at to make sure that your time and efforts are correct. So I have some examples here. When you are doing your time and effort, okay, they have to match your grant, which has to match NSSRS, which has to match your time and effort. Okay, so if you aren't sure, you can look at here's just an example of a grant. Okay, we have this teacher, 100% title. This is an example of NSSRS, 100% title, time and effort, 100%. Okay, that's the easiest way. If you are able to fund a teacher 100% with your Title I grant, you got it easy. Okay, all these things have to match. This is one of the big things that we check. If you are school-wide, it won't necessarily be in your grant, but we do look at NSSRS, and then we look at your time and effort. All right, we will not ask for 5 years worth of time and efforts. We ask for a sampling, and it'll usually, since we're coming out from, I don't know, January to April, we'll ask for probably first semester this year and maybe last semester last year. Okay, if you do not, or if you are not able to fully fund your Title I teacher, don't worry, we have an example for you too. Okay, so in this one, this is a district that doesn't get that much money. They're only able to fund 16% of their teacher, okay? But that still matches NSSRS, which we check, and then you can see here that they're 69% funded somewhere else. When you do that time and effort, we're gonna have them both on there to show their Title I, 16%, and then in this case, this is an elementary counselor who is funded 69%, but it should total 100%. Okay, so this is not necessarily saying that they're spending 100% of their day doing title, but this is just how they are funded. Okay, so
Anne, can I interrupt for just a minute? So Anne said that it should equal 100%. In this case, it doesn't. So the example that we provided doesn't equal 100. It's okay. We'll give her a break, but just a reminder that it should equal 100. And then the one thing that she's put on both slides is bookkeeping records. That's a really big deal to make sure that whatever you have on all of these matches what's in the books. So if you're funding that teacher's salary and benefits at 16% with federal funding and you've coded it to the federal fund of Title I, that's what should be in your books as well. Thanks, Ann.
Man, that's a bummer. All right, well, not a great example, but just an example to show you if you don't have someone fully 100%.
So, Ann, what if we were out in the school district and saw this? What would we have the district do if they had something wrong like that?
Well, first you'd say, Ann, double check your math. Are you sure on this? But we would just say, that's okay. We'll just go back and fix it. Okay, so
Yep.
we would just, if this was a first semester time and effort, we would go back and look at, how much you are funded, and then we would just have you redo the time and effort. And then either if you're able to get it to us that day, great, you can email it to us later on. But if these don't match when we're out there, you're not going to get a finding. It will just be a no problem. Let's put this on our to-do list of things that we need to change. So that's a great point. So if they're not exactly right, we will help you fix them. Again, we are here to support and help you make sure that things are all in place when you do get fiscally monitored for your time and efforts. If you have multiple teachers that you're paying out of these grants, that's fine. We will look at all of them, but we will only be looking at people that are funded out of the title grant. So this could also apply for Title II. If you have a class size reduction teacher, anyone that's getting paid out of your grants is what we would collect. And then here's just an example of what you would fill out on that page in your checklist of giving us a short little explanation of your teacher. And then if you link their to time and efforts, that is all we would need on something like this. Okay, that was a lot of just a little short bit there, but do we have any like very general questions about just filling out the checklist or about time and effort? Because we'll probably give you the government response of it depends. But does anyone have any specific questions that they want to throw out there?
And this is Chris Schneider in Grand
Hi.
Island. Hi. You guys are still, I still do the set schedule. Well, of course, the monthly time and efforts, but the set schedule, are you guys still requiring that one? We have certain people in our district that do have a set schedule. So
Yeah.
is that okay?
Yep. If that's like, what do we call those? The PAR and the semi-annual, anyone that's getting paid out of the grant. Yep. We would collect those.
Those types. Okay. Thank
Yep.
you.
And I will put the link to the new time and effort in the chat. It's also, those can be found on our website under the forms on the left-hand side. If you hit the forms and then there's time and effort, that's where the new forms are. So I will send those, I will directly attach them in here as soon as I get them to open.
So any other? Yeah, we will provide the slides. We will have this posted on our website as well, so you guys can see those examples.
And I noticed your example of the time and effort. It showed 100% on a single cost objective. And then it showed Title I and it showed elementary counselor, I believe. So that means that the elementary counselor could have been paid with Title I funds, or do you want to provide a little bit of additional explanation on that?
So in that example, it was as part of the title, or the counselor's job was she did interventions. She did Title I interventions for one spot during the day. So that was my example. Janice, are you looking for something specific? Sorry, I don't know what you want me to say.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Because a lot of times people will think Title I counselors. Some Title I schools do have a social emotional goal that they're funding with Title I that they might have included. But Ann's example is perfect. So the guidance counselor is also a recovering elementary teacher, let's say, and they're going to do interventions to help support. So that's exactly right. I got a personal chat in that I just want to address because I think it's a great question. So somebody wanted to know why their teacher is coded at F1180 and 01160. So is it because the funds don't cover the entire salary and insurance? That's exactly right. So F1180 would be their school-wide It's a school-wide program, school-wide Title I program, and they're doing Title I services, and that's the percentage. And then it could be 0, 11, 60 because they're the Title I, or I'm sorry, because they're a teacher as well. So yes, you can only code that. This is a hard concept, I think, for a lot of people. In NSSRS, you just because they're a Title I teacher doesn't mean that you have enough funds to pay for them all. So you do have to code them to a different code than F if you don't have enough dollars. So that's exactly right. That's because you don't have enough money to pay for it all. And then I think there was another question.
You do not need to go back to previous years and use the updated form. Just starting, I don't know, this semester is fine. We don't need you to go through and change a bunch of stuff, but just moving forward, if you would be so kind to use the updated form, that would be super.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that was it. Somebody
Okay.
asked about the completed monitoring guide would be helpful. So we'll have that in our slides that you can grab as needed too. So good questions.
Alrighty. Here's some of the other policies that we will ask for copies of. These are usually on your website. So again, if you can just direct us, and specifically, please, not just the website to be like, oh, it's here and here's all of our board policies. But these are the ones that we will need. Your homeless policy, whoever in your district is your designated homeless liaison, that certificate, your parent and family engagement policy, and your Title I and foster student transportation policy. Those are some of the policies that we have to have on file. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the parent and family engagement policy because it can also actually be a procedure. Now, everyone has one from your law office. Okay, so whichever law office you go through, you have a general one. We have kind of learned in the past year that we weren't necessarily always doing them correctly. And so if you have more than one elementary building or more than one school-wide plan, we need an additional building parent and family policy. Okay, and then we need examples of how this is being met. So, for example, all right, so if you need to update that, because in your general board approved policies, there's not really going to be examples of how that's being met. But if you guys, stop and think, you do so much to engage your parents and families, from having them come to school to online social media blasts, to emailing things home, to having grades available all the time. So if you need to update this, so if you are someone who has more than one school-wide policy and we are monitoring you this year, you can find this policy again on our website. This one's under our Title 1A section of the website, and then you can find examples here. All right, now if you want to just do one combined district and school parent policy, engagement policy, you definitely can, but it just kind of goes through and it asks you these questions, how give us some examples of how you provided opportunities for the participation of parents, including those with migratory children, limited English proficiency, disabilities. What do you do to make sure that you're reaching all parents for all kids? And so it even gives you some examples here, and they don't have to be specific, like you have a back to school night, you have open house night, you have curriculum night, you have conferences. Those are all things that could work. So feel free to download this, fill it out, and link it or save it or give this to us as part of your monitoring for your parent and family engagement policy. There might be a lot of questions about this because, again, it is kind of new for us, and we would need something more like this. So you definitely, you can find that again on our website under the Title 1A section. Okay. The other thing that has been new in the past 3 years, I would say, is we now need a specific procedure, doesn't have to be a board approved policy, about the transportation for children who are in foster care. Talk to your law firm. over the past few years, I feel like they have started to implement it maybe just into your general transportation policy, which is absolutely fine. But we do have to have some sort of procedure in place that when a kid who attends your school enters the foster care system, what does the school do to support that, especially when it comes to transportation? So if you have a kid who lives in your town, goes to school in your district, needs a lot of support, enters the foster care system, moves to a town that's, 12 miles away, not in your district anymore, you are now required to, be a part of that bid, be a part of that. Well, should that kids keep coming to school in our district? Is that change going to be detrimental to them? And then if so, how are you going to get them to school? Okay. And it doesn't always have to be like you will then have to pay for it. Maybe whoever they're staying with will bring them to school. That's no problem. But you do have to have some sort of procedure policy in place that covers these 3 check marks here. Okay. Again, talk to your law firm. They have been updating policies over the past couple of years with this in place. If you are unsure, give them a call or just let us know too. I mean, because it could be a procedure that you have somewhere and be like, okay, when this happens, we're going to do A, B, C. We just have to have a copy of that. This is something that we will put on file. Okay, so then when we get to required documentation, this is the part where your Title I teacher or your title team, your MTSS team comes into play. All right, these are things that we have to have copies of. Evidence of that annual parent meeting. It's done in a variety of ways across the state, but we do have to have some sort of evidence of that, meaning the minutes or maybe a presentation, the agenda. We do need the sign-in from that meeting. If you are able to do your sign-in without having the kids' names on it, that is helpful because we don't want to keep that information. We usually have to just, black it out. But if you have some sort of sign-in for the parents, we need your compacts that you have, whether it be something that you make yourself, if it's in your handbook, we need that. And then we will need your school-wide, your self-review or your targeted, your self-review form. Which, if we come out in February and you haven't done it yet for this year, we can take last year's, that's fine. Or if you want to send it to us when you get it done in, maybe you do it in April, you can give it to us then, and then we'll file it in this year's docs. But these are the things that you would want to collect from your title teacher or your title team. Okay, it goes in the monitoring guide checklist for each section. So you can link things in here. You can link if you have a whole folder, depending on your title teachers. Some of them, they're all very organized. So just whatever links we need, or if you have an old school title teacher who still has her big old binder, that is something all the title teachers had, and you scan copies of that, that's fine. But we do need copies of all these things. Again, how this is all being done, we need evidence of that. So just anything over here in the dark gray, make sure that is included when you send us your documents. Okay, so here would be an example if you're a targeted building. Okay, if you are a targeted building, you get to fill out just a few more sections on this checklist than if you are school-wide, but it does need to be filled out. So we don't have to have documentation of this, but we're going to ask you, what's your needs assessment? How do you determine how kids are identified? Do you have an MTSS team? How many kids are you serving? We go through all of this. We need to see a matrix. We need to have all that evidence. And again, you can link stuff in here. It's just not stuff we'll download and keep on file, but your Title I teachers can link anything in here. But they have these 3 questions. We go into the rest of this is parent notification. We talk about Transact. We need to see their schedules, any waivers by parents if they refuse services. And then there's just a couple more on here. We want to make sure that if you're targeted, that you're not using your title teacher to always do supervision, or they have to do more supervision or have more duties than the others. So the targeted section does have a few more boxes that they get to fill out on this checklist. Oh gosh, there's 3 more, never mind. So it's a few more. If you buy anything specific for your title program and you're targeted, we do have to have inventory and you have to have labels of all that stuff. And then your self-review document. Now, if you're school-wide, you only have to answer these 5, but we still need to have evidence of all these. You would click yes, you would put your links and your comments in here. We don't need pages of, couple sentences for each one. And then when we meet with you, you will have a chance to discuss it more in depth and we will take notes, but just giving us examples and evidence of all of this. Some of this could be linked in a different part. So evidence of parent-family involvement, maybe you put all that up with your parent-family engagement policy. You could put a comment here that says, see parent-family engagement policy for examples. We are fine with that because as you'll see, like as we come out and start talking, we kind of, especially some of us who've done this for a while, like I can kind of condense all of these topics into one conversation that we did 2 pages ago. So just make sure that you're making comments in every section. Again, please remember that every section of the checklist that pertains to your district needs comments. Even if documents are not required, we will discuss things not in depth because, I mean, who wants to talk about, like your budget policies in depth? But we just need to make sure that you have them and have links to them there. So please make sure you have that. Oh, here's an example that we gave of, so with those policies, these are just the financial policies. We don't have to have them, but here you can see that they mention, this is their policy number for all these. And then here would be our comments, like it's on the website, it was last reviewed here. When it comes to financial policies, this is about as much as I want to talk about it. So maybe some of you want to talk about it more, but again, like it does need to be filled out, have that X there. If these were linked, that would also be great. That way we can just ensure that they're there, but this would just be an example of a section of the checklist when no documentation is required.
And I want to interrupt for just a minute because you made a comment to start with about how important it would be to have a variety of people around the table. So as you can see from what Anne's presented, the superintendent or the business manager is going to know the policy numbers. Your Title I teacher is going to know the matrices that are used and the interventions that are used. So you can kind of see how the different roles are critical for the review and for helping to put this checklist together.
Okay, so that was kind of the end of just Title I. Now for the next, we're just going to kind of go through, if you guys take Title II, the only required document is going to be your annual needs assessment that supports your funding. Okay, there's still there's still sections that you need to fill out in that checklist, but if you take Title II, the only required thing that we need is your annual needs assessment. If you take Title III, the only required thing is the district parent notification letter in English and other languages. Transact will help with it. If you guys have use Transact, Ann Hubble, Julie, Otera, they can really set you up. Transact is great. It has a lot of things that you need in all the languages that you need, but we have to have your notification letter and your Rule 15. Okay, again, you got to fill out the rest of the checklist in that section, but this is the only required documentation that we need. Then for Title IV, your needs assessment again, or your continuous improvement plan if you're under 30,000 for Title IV that you use to identify how you were going to use your Title IV funds. Okay, so the other title sections, the documentation that we need is far less than what we need for Title I, but you still get to fill out the rest of that checklist.
And can I just clarify real quick on the Title
Yes.
III? There are actually 2 things we collect. And the first one is that parent notification letter. And then the second one is an annual program review. It's a written report that needs to be done annually for Title III. So
thank
just
you.
wanted to clarify, it can be found in Rule 15, and Rule 15 implementation guide can help you with it, but you need to have an annual program review written summary.
Thank you. Okay. We will take, if we have any more questions, we'll probably just say it still depends. But now that we kind of gone through, that's the skinny, that's the checklist, that's how you fill it out. That's the thing. Those are the things we need. Hopefully take a big deep breath. It's not as bad as it seems. And we are here to support. But do we have any questions?
Yeah, Carol put one in talking about for the programs they don't have, like say they don't have Title 3 and 4, do they just go ahead and mark NA in all the questions?
Yep. You can just go, I mean, and you can just put it in that checkbox. Let me give you a right here, this third column right here would be NA. You could just put that and then leave it blank. You do not need to make any, if it doesn't apply to you, you don't need to fill it out.
There's another question I think needs a little bit of explanation. So the question is, if we transfer our Title IV funds to Title I, do we need to do the Title IV section? Well, the answer is, but it depends to start with. So remember, this is a 5-year review. So we're going back to the last time we reviewed you to make sure you didn't use those funds in that span. So if you didn't, Anne's answer is right. No, you don't need to fill it out. But if you did use those funds maybe 2 years ago, we'll need to review from 2 years ago. And then going forward, we would not review this, let's say Title IV in this example. So depends. It's always, we love that. It still depends. It depends.
If you give your funds to your ESU, like for Title III, and you have every single year since you've last were monitored, you do not need to fill that part out. ESUs do get monitored as well. And so if you, you could sort all your Title III funds when the ESU's turn to get monitored, they get monitored with Title III instead of you. So if every year you've consorted your funds to the ESU in a certain title program, then you do not need to fill it out for that part. And you guys, when we send you your letter, it will say in there specifically which programs you are monitored on.
There is also a question about transferring. So yeah, Beth already answered it in the chat, but let's just talk through that. Title I funds cannot be transferred. Title III funds cannot be transferred. Title II N and D can't be transferred. But when we talk about 2 and 4, 2 can be transferred to 1 and 4 can be transferred to 1, or 2 and 4 can transfer to each other. So that's how that works.
We will go back, Chris. We will monitor from whenever you were last monitored. So since we've kind of changed from 3-year to 5-year, it could be 3 years, it could be 4 years, it could have been last year. So just whenever we will monitor from this year to whenever you were last monitored.
I have a quick caveat on the transferring. If you do transfer, you have to transfer the full amount. You can't split it. So that's one thing. Also did have a question about on the monitoring. There are a few districts that notice they're listed on 2 different years. Part of that is because of the when we switch to the 5-year monitoring, we're trying to go the 2 years after you've had your big consolidated monitoring that are your big continuous improvement monitoring. In order to get you on the right schedule, a few we had to push up and do before your what will be your scheduled time because it put you outside of our 5 years that we're allowed. So there's a few districts that are listed twice on there. If you're highlighted in orange, you should have gotten an email from me back in December. I think it was in December, stating that you were going to be monitored some are this year and some are next year to get you on the right schedule. If you're doing it where you're getting a back-to-back or just like a 2 years, there's a good chance that we'd be able to do your monitoring as a desk monitoring. But in order to keep us in compliance, we have had to push you up. So if you see your name, your school's district on there twice, that's why.
Which glass half full means that you've already done everything on that checklist. The only thing you would probably need to update are some your time and efforts and your annual parent meeting. So you've already done most of the work if you want to be a glass half full kind of person.
And then I had a
So-
question on what desk monitoring is. And desk monitoring is you would do all the paperwork, but we wouldn't necessarily come out to your district. We would probably just Zoom with you. Or if you've gone through the whole thing and it's just got a couple documents that need to be looked at, it might just be able to be handled through emails and that type of thing. So it kind of depends how many grants you have, how complicated they are, and how recent the last monitoring was.
Okay, any other questions?
This is Teresa, and my question, and I sent it to you separately.
Okay.
I see that I did that. Sorry about that. What is the reason you have to have individual building family parent engagements if there's a district policy? What is the purpose?
So the purpose on that would be ideally, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, is that not every single building does it the same. Not every single building offers the same opportunity. You know, you maybe you have a different, literacy night than another building, because since each building is in itself is unique and does their own kind of thing, then it doesn't apply to everyone.
What if
That's the
it
idea.
does? What if it does?
So every
If
single
they
building,
all have a literacy night? What if they all have a curriculum? I'm just curious. What if that were true?
well, if they all use the exact same presentation, if they all use the exact same materials, then maybe it
Okay.
depends. Maybe
Okay.
we could, and we could talk about that. Remind me, Teresa, where are you?
Columbus.
Okay, so
I mean,
yeah,
I
well,
just
and
know
this is
our teachers work together. Our reading teachers meet every week. I mean, do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
Teresa,
no, and
yeah, let me clarify that a little bit. So think of it this way, Teresa. If they do exactly the same parent and family engagements across, and remember, this is everything they do, kind of, right? So it's maybe kindergarten in this building does donuts and dads, and this building doesn't do that. So it's very specific. It doesn't have to just be the Title I procedures. It can be anything they do to engage parents. So if it's all the same across all those buildings, if they all do the same activities for everybody, great, it could be one. But if there's something different, you'd want to do one per building.
and
And
so, but
you
you're
have to,
saying update a policy.
Well, remember, this doesn't have to be a policy, Teresa. It should be procedures. In fact, we
Oh, that's
encourage you to be
different. Oh,
procedures. Yes.
procedures. I thought I heard the word policy.
You
it's
know what? It's
you
called
probably did.
policy by the feds. So you would have heard the word
Oh,
policy, but it's truly procedures,
oh,
Teresa,
well
because
then got it.
yeah, I totally agree
Okay.
with you because as a former superintendent, my heart beats fast when I say, "Oh, I'm going to take it to the board that we're doing donuts and dads with kindergarten
Yeah.
and that we're
I
going to
just,
do this
yeah.
PE activity because we don't need the board to do that." So it says policy, but it could truly be just your
Thank you. Thank you
procedures.
for the clarification.
the other
Yes.
the other important piece is you have to remember parents are supposed to be involved in the creation of the policy. And so unless you have parents from all of the buildings included at the when that's done, it doesn't meet the guidelines. So while the
Sure,
feds call
that
it a
makes sense.
policy, it's really is a procedure, but we do have to call it a policy just because that's the federal guidance
Sure.
for it.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
We have a couple more questions that we need to for sure address. Do we need to update our school-wide plan or just our annual school-wide self-review is the first question. And then the other question is about breakout rooms. And yes, Joni, we can do breakout rooms. Okay, so let's talk about the school-wide plan. That's kind of different. We put out some guidance on this, and Beth, I'm going to help you add to this as well. But we used to do, you guys remember probably that every 3 years you'd have to send a couple people to a location and we do school-wide reviews. And you'd get feedback for that. So you'd send yours in 1 year and then the next year you'd do your review and it went through a 3-year cycle. Well, we were told that that was not necessary. It's not something we have to do. So we wanted to take that off your plate. So you don't have to send in your school-wide review plan for us to review. You don't have to come and do the review, but what you do need to do is internally each year, you do need to review your school-wide plan and look at what you're doing and make any updates to it. And then, of course, that has to be posted on your website, on the school's website, the individual schools. So that's very different. And we do have a lot of people that have asked because it's a requirement on the consolidated application this year for you to put a link to that school-wide plan. And we're looking to see when you last reviewed that. So yeah, put that on your list of things you need to do every year is take a look at that school-wide self-review. And Beth, do you want to add anything that I missed on that?
Just if there were changes, then you would need to update your plan. So if you are, for example, you're a district that had 3 buildings and you've consolidated into 1 building, you will need to rewrite your school-wide plan and have that reapproved by us. Instead of doing peer review, now just the department of our team will be doing those reviews. Once you have the approved plan, it's good, but you have to do the self-review every year, like Dottie said. And then we ask for you to just do the cover sheet, making sure that the principal and everybody that is listed is current. And then it also has when it was last reviewed. That way we know that it's current.
So you're reviewing it every year. You just might not need to send it to us based on what you did to it, but you should take a look at it and review it as a team and think through what you're doing and determine if there's any changes you need to make to it.
Only if you change your plan, not if the personnel changes. You don't have to send it to us for that. It's just if your plan changes, you change grade levels, you're going to start incorporating math or SEL. That's the only time we need it. But if the plan itself isn't changing, then you do not have to send it to us every year. You just have to review it every year.
Good question. We appreciate that question a lot because we get that quite often.